Okay, how about now? Hariom? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So when Chitrakoot needs to speak, I will have to unmute on my laptop, so there might be some echo. I just muted my speaker on this laptop.
No, she doesn't have to, right? Because when Chitrakoot speaks.
Okay,
What about,
awesome. So with that, Rakesh
they're
ji,
hearing.
we can hear you when you speak. Okay.
You're unmuted, so you can.
Okay.
Huh?
So with that, shall we go ahead? Well, good. All right, we'll figure it out afterwards if anything goes wrong. All right, so with this, we'll start with our opening prayers, and then we'll, yes.
Okay.
All right, with that, we'll do 3 opening prayers, Sahana Bhavatu, then Vakraturna Mahakaya, Saraswati Namastubhyam, and Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu.
Have right? Because that is the audio that's going out.
Rakesh ji, we can hear you when you speak in the AV room.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, awesome. So with that, Om Sahana Bhavatu, Sahano Bhunaktu, Saha Viryam Karavavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Vakratunda Mahakaya, Surya Koti Samaprabha, Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva, Sarva Karyeshu Sarvada, Saraswati Namastubhyam, Varade Kamarupini, Vidyarambham Karishyami, Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sadam. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. All right, so today's plan, just so that everyone has a heads up, we are going to take one thought that we discovered in the chapter called Harmony and Poise, and we're going to now look at the content in chapters called Science and Religion and What is Religion. So we're gonna go straight through the content of it, learn it first, and in between I will ask you to read certain paragraphs that are there. So if you have your copy of Kindle Life with you, please have that ready and be able to shuffle through this. These 2 chapters come right with each other. And we finally have copies of the book. So if you don't have a copy in this class, I'm just going to give you a couple so that you can, if I call on anybody, somebody will have a copy. But otherwise, everyone in this room has a copy. We're good? Awesome. All right. Now, okay, so after we learn the content of these 2 particular chapters, I have a group activity for us to do at the end. So I will probably designate about 10-15 minutes. I want us to split off into maybe, how many are here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 2 groups of 2 and 1 group of 3. We'll do that. And in the same way in Chitrakoot, I would ask if we can also form small groups and take on different, the exercise we're going to do at the end. And depending on how well we do in time management, if we have time to start sharing, I'd love to hear from you. And if it doesn't happen in this class, we will move to the next class. And I would love to hear you present your thoughts on this particular exercise. So that'll be the game plan for today's satsang. Okay. Now, let's pick up the most important sentence we discovered in the chapter of Harmony and Poise. In order for someone to achieve harmony and poise, they must rise above their ego. Now, in order to rise above the ego, they have to accommodate the totality of the world and the entirety of mankind. Simple sentence, right? But this is thesis, bottom line, the main message of that chapter. And last time we'd kind of done a bit of an exercise. How did Sri Ramchandra ji apply this, right? Well, during the moment in Ramayana when he was about to get his coronation and become the king of Ayodhya, his world came crashing down. And he was exiled, and In that moment that could have caused disharmony and him to lose his poise, we see that Sri Ramchandra ji maintained it. How? Why? So my question last time was, can we apply this principle to what Sri Ramchandra ji did as a way of seeing this in practice? So I asked you what were the different reasons Sri Ramchandra ji gave when he said, no, I'm not bothered. I'm not, this is all right. What were some of the reasons that he gave? We saw one is he focused on keeping his father's word. Right? That was the main reason why he said, Father, I'm willing to do what it takes. To protect your word is my duty, so I shall. So what was that? That was rising above his ego, looking at something bigger than himself. The reputation and prestige and the truthfulness of words is what he was taking into account. Another reason, when Bhagwan was asked to take avatara and come down to this earth, there are two reasons, or two sides of the coin that he takes in order to come here. And this comes from Gita verse, yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhitanam adharmasya, right? To be able to correct and bring back into balance dharma. Now, how does he do this? You have to look at the next verse in Gita where he says, I punish those that are upholding adharma, and I protect the sadhus that are upholding dharma. Two things, punish and protect. Punish those that are wrong, protect those that are doing right. So that way, dharma itself gets protected by protecting those that practice dharma. That's the logic there. So what did Sri Ramchandra ji have to do now? He has to leave Ayodhya to be able to address all the Rakshasas that exist in the world outside of Ayodhya, and especially, who was the biggest Rakshasa of them all that he really had to address? Ravana. He had to bring him the consequences of his actions. And at the same time, he also had to leave Ayodhya because he had to meet all of the bhaktas and sadhus that were upholding dharma in their own way and bless them. None of that would have happened if he was still in Ayodhya. So now, again, the goodness in that instance, or the way we can remain in harmony and poise, is I'm not looking at my own self, my likes and dislikes. I'm looking at the totality of the world and how dharma upholds it. Then what am I doing to protect that totality? So dharma, protecting dharma by punishing those that are not doing it and helping and protecting those that are doing it. So this is another example of how looking at the grander scheme of things will help diminish the perception of the ego. And when the ego is dissolved or minimized, there remains harmony and poise. That's the formula given in harmony and poise. Now, how do we continue this idea of looking at totality, and how do we come back to addressing the ego? So now we'll look at the content of two of these chapters. Science and I almost wrote science versus religion, but I'm like, wait, let me correct myself. The title is Science and Religion. There, he says we need to take a look at the evolution of man. Evolution of mankind, actually. So now we're going to look into this chapter, evolution of mankind over time. He said we went through 4 distinct ages. So the first one is age of perception. Age of perception. So now, if I can have a volunteer. Uncle, can we have a mic here so that, now while he's bringing the mic out, can everyone turn in their book, wherever it is, to the chapter called Science and Religion? Science and Religion. 52 in that new book. And in this brown-colored Life Kindle, I think it's called 48. Yes, 48. Now, if we can look to the second paragraph where it says, in the beginning of human development. So we're going to read just that one paragraph. May I have a volunteer in this room?
In the beginning of human development, man was led by instincts and impulses.
Emma, can you bring it closer and a little bit louder?
In the beginning
Yes.
of human development, man was led by instincts and impulses rather than reason and knowledge. He merely perceived the phenomenon of nature, the sun and the moon, the rain and the thunders, birth and death, and so on. His perception was no better than that of animals, for in both the cases their intellect never reacted to the external world. He enjoyed himself whenever objects and environment were pleasant and agreeable, but suffered silently when they were unpleasant and disagreeable. He never questioned or tried to improve what he perceived. This was the age of perception.
So I'm just writing key points, key characteristics of each age. Right? So first one is they were constantly living by their instincts and impulses. And they did not use reason or knowledge. They were just living by whatever drove them from within. So they only observed nature, and they did no better than any other animal. If we think about it, animals are quite sophisticated, right? Their level of instincts is quite complex, but at the same time, they live nothing other than their impulses. If it rains, they know what to do when it rains. If it's shining, sun shining, they know what to do. So they appropriately respond to whatever they see in nature, but it's nothing better than an animal. So in the same way, when a human lives like this, they suffer through good and bad. What I mean by that is, if it's raining or if it's good day, blue skies, they'll just suffer through it. And they will not try to improve what he sees. So this, we say, is the age of perception. Then he graduates just a little bit. There's a question that comes into his mind. I don't want to suffer like this anymore. What can I do? So now we graduate to the age of observation. Observation. So may I have the next volunteer? I believe it's the next paragraph. Yes. So the age of observation from this crude and barbarous age of perception.
From this crude and barbarous age of perception, humanity marched forward to reach the
Page
age
48.
of observation. Man was no longer content with mere perception. He began to ponder over the why and the wherefore of the phenomena of nature around and about him. His intellect thus started the causation hunting.
Causation hunting.
Causation hunting. For example, the primitive generation living in the age of perception took the shelter when the rains poured down and emerged when the rains ceased. They merely perceived and experienced the rainfall, but were never curious to observe it and much less interested in inquiring into its cause. But as man advanced in his intellectual development, he became more observant and began to wonder at the phenomenal power of nature. His little intellect observed certain simultaneous occurrences and related them unintentionally to the rainfall. Thus, when he found a mango tree shaking whenever it rained, he attributed the cause of the rain to the shaking of the mango trees. This was the age of observation or superstition, where effects were traced to causes which were beyond any scientific reason and logic.
Okay. So, although the right question was asked, it wasn't a perfect answer. So they started asking, I'm no longer content with just suffering through whatever is given. Is there something more I can do? So they start asking, why do these things start happening? But they weren't, so I like this phrase, causation hunting. I am hunting for the cause of things. So although the right question was asked, the answer wasn't perfect. So I really liked this example. It started to rain, and right before it starts to rain, they started to see that the mango leaves start to shake. So what is this? Simultaneous occurrence. So they think, oh, if the mango tree shakes, it's gonna rain. So what would us dumb monkeys do after this? Go shake the tree when I want rain. So there really, there wasn't true logic yet. There wasn't any scientific reasonings happening at this point. But it's still age of observations. They were taking in a lot of things. They were noticing more, trying to make correlations. I think, I don't know why I remembered this, but in one of the classes I took in college, they said, correlation is not causation. Correlation is not causation. If two things happen to happen at the same time, doesn't mean they caused each other. The other example I'll take is, if I see the pavement wet, it must mean that it has rained. Is that true always? There's a correlation between a wet pavement and rain, but that does not mean that that's the sole cause. The rain is one of the causes of a wet pavement, but I could also have a high schooler that found the pipe outside and said, hey, let's play mudslide and play. So correlation does not imply causation. And yet, sometimes, especially when you observe kids' logic, you will see them go through this. There's some weird additions and subtractions they do in them trying to understand life. So this is a natural progression from perception to observation. So now we've grown up, matured a little bit more. Sorry, I want to make sure I got all of my thoughts here. Oh, okay. Another big one, another big statement here. This is also the age of superstition. Age of superstition. Why? Go back to the mango example. I have the superstition that when I shake the mango leaf, I will make it rain. And other people that are observing, they're like, what? Why are you so superstitious? Here's another example that I thought was really funny. There was once a Gurukula. Of course, our stories always start. Once upon a time, there was a Gurukula. And in that Gurukula, there were gurus and shishyas. Now, one time, this guru was giving a satsang, and there was a black cat on the side of the ashram, howling and, walking around. One time, he even crossed right in front of the guru, and he's like, dude, really? So he asked the shishya, hey, do me a favor. Take a rope, tie it around the cat, and tie him up to that tree. So that there's no distractions during satsang. And of course, this cat lived in that ashram, and every single time there's a satsang, he would somehow or the other distract it. So every single time Guru says, go tie up that cat, go tie up that cat. So they got into the habit of it. At one point, Guru doesn't even need to ask. As soon as they see the cat, they'll go tie it up. Okay, good shishyas. Over time, this guru became old and he passed away, and generations kind of moved over, but they kept noticing that the older students would keep tying up the cat to the tree. So even those students graduated and left the ashram, then at one point the next students learned, they kept tying that cat over give 5 generations, 6 generations. At one point the cat also died. And what would these students do? They went and got a black cat, brought it to the ashram and tied it to that tree. Age of superstition, where they didn't understand what the true cause was, and just by happenstance correlation, or was it causation hunting or simultaneous occurrence, superstitions developed over time. But it's still not fully backed by logic or scientific reasoning. So now, when you start seeing shishyas finding a black cat, trying to tie it to a tree, you're like, dude, why? Then this is when we start evolving and growing. So if we can go to the next paragraph. Amma, can you remind us of the page again in your book where we're at? 50? 54. Amma, were you able to find the paragraph? Okay. Who in this room would like to volunteer for? There are two copies. I didn't know this too. There's a new publication. So bear with us. It's in the chapter called Science and Religion. We're about 3 or 4 paragraphs in. Now we're going to be talking about the age of scientific inquiry. So I think the paragraph starts with, as humanity evolved further, right?
So as humanity evolved further, man advanced to the age of scientific inquiry, when his intellect reached a higher stage of development. He sought to discover the cause of everything around and about him. He penetrated into the working of the phenomenal world, collected data and facts, experimented upon them, drew intelligent and rational conclusions, and laid down a systemized knowledge of laws. Superstitions and wild beliefs were substituted by scientific truths. No more did they believe that shaking the mango tree caused the rains. The scientific age continues to discover the secret powers of nature for blessing society. The physicists and the chemists, the botanists and the mathematicians, the economists and the politicians are all exercising their effort and contributing to the endless discoveries of the laws of nature. This, in short, is the age in which we are living today.
Okay. Is that the end of the...
No, no.
Oh,
As
sorry.
the scientists are continuously pursuing their world in their respective fields of inquiry, a time comes when they, in their maturity, wonder at the harmony and rhythm expressed in the various laws of nature and start contemplating as to who is the external lawgiver, who orders these laws to function.
Pause. That's too far. Sorry. So let's hit pause right there. The main features of the age of scientific inquiry. This is when we started turning on our intellect a little bit more, and we wanted to find the true cause of things. The mango doesn't always shake. Also, it rains, and there's no real causation between the two. So then we started collecting data, experimenting, and truly analyzing. This is when the scientific experimental process comes in, right? Hypothesis, data collection, experimentation, then verification, then come back to conclusion to verify the hypothesis. And this whole experiment has to be duplicated by many different scientists. This is how we try to make the data collection more objective and truly see if correlation is causation. We want to verify that. Now, when it comes back to the example, now how would we explain what causes rain? This should be easy. What would you say? Water, right? Water plus, what's the key ingredient in the sun? There we go. Sun, so water plus sun equals evaporation, and this is called the water cycle, right? The sun heats up the ocean, water rises, then the wind carries it to the landmass, then it condenses and it rains, and then it flows through the river systems and back into the ocean, and this is the water cycle. This is now how we're explaining the phenomenons of nature. Now, the most important thing about this kind of inquiry, we're not just doing it for mental exercise. The real point is we're blessing society with the power of harnessing nature. Why did I study water cycle in the first place? One, can I protect myself against floods? Can I capture fresh water? I can't drink ocean water. Where do I get fresh water from? Then how do I understand in what areas will it rain? Where can I put up my agriculture? By understanding the water cycle, I am now harnessing it to improve my state of living. Wasn't that the original quest in Age of Observation? I am not happy suffering through whatever is given to me. I want to change it so that I am more comfortable. Does this not echo the mentality of materialism? Do you remember all the way back in the beginning of the year when we started talking about materialism? I am going to rearrange the world around me to fit the circumstances to my likes and dislikes. That's this. This is the age of science. And I really like this. We are here. In a giant map of evolution, there's a big red dot saying we are here. Now, let's continue to the next one, and then I'll come back to give it a couple points about this age once we understand the next one. Can we hear? Amma, would you be able to pick up wherever he left off? You might have to find the same spot in the new book. Amma, if you want to pick up the beginning of that paragraph just to get that thought flow again, that's fine too.
Okay. The scientific age continues to discover the secret powers of nature for blessing society. The physicists and the chemists, the botanists and the mathematicians, the economists and the politicians are all exercising their efforts and contributing to the endless discoveries of the laws of nature. This, in short, is the age in which we are living today. As the scientists are continuously pursuing their work in their respective fields of inquiry, a time comes when they, in their maturity, wonder at the harmony and rhythm expressed in the various laws of nature and start contemplating as to who is that eternal lawgiver who orders these laws to function in strict perfection, obedience and reverence. Thus, their objective inquiry is elevated to a subjective contemplation upon the primeval cause for everything that exists in nature, and this marks man's entry into the age of contemplation.
All right. No, we can pause right there. Sure. Okay. So now we've entered a new set of questions that we want to solve now. We are amazed at a couple things. One is that there is this harmony and rhythm. See, we just observed water cycle. Like that, how many other cycles exist on Earth? And how many of those cycles work with each other? Like, for example, I mean, I'm a bio nerd for, true to heart, so I'm gonna bring those examples up. You have the geological systems. How does the geological tectonic plates affect the water cycle? Then how does the water cycle affect the weathers? Why do we have monsoon season in one side, the El Niños on the other side? And how does it affect the ecosystem in the oceans? They keep changing and interacting with each other. That's just simply on Earth. If you go into space, I really liked this one. Function, precision, obedience, and reverence. Apply those words to space and astronomy. The function of each of those planets, the precision in which they all revolve around each other, the obedience of Pluto having a wacky little orbit versus Neptune versus Saturn, the obedience and the grandness of the galaxies. It's almost reverential, isn't it? At one point, the way the entire universe functions in such precision and obedience, it's something to be amazed at. All scientists at the end of their life are like, I don't know who this creator is, but he must be fabulous. Because he cannot design something this amazing and himself not be amazing. That's the thing. When we study the world of phenomenon so well, we come to this point of amazement and reverence that we now wonder who created this. That's when we graduate from age of scientific inquiry to age of contemplation. So we wonder, who is that within all of these laws? Who is that which is the eternal lawgiver? And who ordered these laws? What is the truth that binds all of these laws of nature? What was the value one of the first values we learned in a couple classes ago? There were 3 values. What's the first one? Satyam. Here it comes again. What is that Satyam that lives behind all of these laws? Does it now not sound like philosophy right now? We just jump from science to philosophy. But it's because we come to understand science so well that we're awestruck. So my favorite word out of all this is reverence. That's the real key when we flip into the next age. Who is that made this so wonderful? And I think, how many of you are doctors in here? No, okay, maybe on the other side. But I've seen those that are in the medical profession, when they've served long enough in that field, they themselves are like, I'm flabbergasted by the beauty of the human system. It is so resilient to the number of onslaught that this body handles, and yet at the same time, it is so delicate. I only know just the plumbing of this human body. There's so much more to discover. I'm amazed at Bhagwan who created this body. Always at some point, there's this tipping where that reverence comes in, and that's when we really start asking the more subtle question. So this is now the subject, and subjective contemplation. This is when that switch happens. Now, here's a comment that I want to make for teachers' perspective, right? We have noticed that in the classroom, we tend to want to prove religion using science. We want to prove religion using science. Why? Because we say, if you look at Vedic maths, if you look at Jyotisha Shastras, you had all of these calculations. The Pythagorean theorem was first given by Vedic studies and all of that. We say, we take science as legitimate and show that religion had done it before, therefore, religion is great. If we look at this in the evolution of time, we are here, we have one more age to get to. So what this is showing is actually science is behind religion. We haven't graduated to religion. So what I'm asking as teachers is set this framework and context in the minds of students. Don't use science to prove religion. Show how religion has gone beyond science. So how would I do this in a classroom? Take a phenomenon that the kids understand as scientific. While you're examining it, introduce a question that science can't answer but religion can. Introduce a question where science can't answer it yet, but religion has answered that question. This will get them to understand that religion and philosophy is actually one step after science. When you sit with them and talk to them about the scientific explanation, whatever is the topic, you're with them. Yes, this is awesome. Yes, there are scientific improvements. This is great. You are here. Now, in order to switch to it, ask them the question that science can't answer. Who is making this work? Why is it in precision? What is the purpose of having a law like this? Those questions aren't answered by science. They only do the hows. This is the why. So if there's any question, this is the how. This is the why. So whenever you get an opportunity, throw in this question. That will get the student, you may not have to answer that question. You may not be ready yet to substantiate a question. One, this is on you to study a little bit more. See if you can find some answers. But the very fact that you get the students to think about this question is getting them to think that religion has more things to offer. So don't reverse it. That's my only encouragement. Yes?
My question is, the students will always say, well, that is what is nature. And so that would be the end of the conversation. This is nature, this is how it is, Big Bang, this is how it is. How do we answer that?
Don't accept it. Don't let them settle for that. And we have to convince ourselves of this first, honestly. We're happy with understanding how things works because it made our life easier. I'm able to experience more material joy, so I'm happy living here. I don't care about the whys. So this is now, I want to apply then, another one, Preyas versus Shreyas. This is another way of thinking about the same line of thinking. Prayas is what the path of pleasant. This is entirely built on my level of experience right here, right now, as this individual. Happy, sad, hot, cold, praise, criticism. This is where I'm living. That's why I care about the house so much, because that fixes this. When do I want to start practicing Shreyas? When I want long-term bliss. I want something higher and nobler. This prayas is no longer satisfactory to me. I'm sick of living in this world that keeps changing on me. What is that which is truthful and eternal? What is that? When I start asking, when I'm not satisfied with the hows anymore, I then start asking things about prayas, that truth, the why. So if there's anything you can do with students is to get them to feel that this is not enough. If you can put that seed in their mind, the rest will take care of itself. But you have to make this a genuine connection. Show them why prayas is not enough. Show them why just dealing with the world outside in its face value, just manipulating it all the time, it's not enough. We have to look at something higher. We have to look at something deeper, and it matters. It changes the quality of my life. Shreyas. I'm pulling all that concept from Shreyas. My life can be better. Giving that, like that sinking feeling, if that can be brought to the students, then they'll come around. Then the rest of the conversation can happen. So it doesn't matter where you are in the curriculum. It doesn't matter what lesson you're taking up. Somehow or the other, if you can find this to be drilled into them, this feeling of living in a materialistic lifestyle is not good enough. Here are all the doshas. Here are all the problems I get through. Is this good enough for me? They should come to say no. Then let them go. They'll find their way around to Shreyas. Okay? Now, here is... Okay, I have 15 minutes. Here's what we're going to do. We want to look at the next chapter because I'll add a little bit more to this, making it more personalized. Right now we looked at it through mankind over time. Now we want to make it more personal, and how does this affect me? Let's go through the content of the next chapter. I will give you the exercise today at the end, and because next week I'm going to be in Chitrakoot and we're splitting our time half and half, let's do this. You work on that exercise for that first half an hour, prepare your presentation, do research, it's up to you. Please come early and spend the time to do it here. Otherwise, do it for homework this week. But we're going to give you half an hour next week. Then that second half, I would like you to present in that half an hour, however long it takes. I'll have some material if we run out of time. Is that a good plan? So we'll look at the next content. I'll give you the question. Next week, you'll work on it during the half an hour that I'm not here. And then the second half of that, you'll present next week. Yeah? Okay. So now, with this in mind, we shall now look at the chapter called What is Religion? So we've come all the way to age of contemplation. We started asking questions of why. Who is that? Who is behind all of these laws? Give me something more subtler. Now we've entered the realm of religion. So what is religion now? That's the next question. Okay. Do you mind if I erase all this? Yeah, real quick. Hang on, maybe online. You can also take a snapshot of that. Okay. Ready? Yep, okay. Share it with each other. Sorry. Okay. So now we're looking into religion. Whenever we have conversations with those that are not Hindus, and they ask us, what is Hinduism? What is your religion? Who is your God? Who is your prophet? What is your book? We're like, NA, not applicable. So if we were to answer the question, what is religion and what is Hinduism specifically, this chapter helps. So let me ask you if we can turn to the chapter called What is Religion? What is religion? And who will be my first victim in this chapter? Go ahead.
A true religion possesses two important limbs, mainly its philosophy and its rare ritualistic injunctions. Mere ritualism, bereft of philosophy, is only superstition. while bare philosophy without ritualistic practices is tantamount to madness. Both the aspects must go hand in hand. Philosophy reinforces the external practices of ritual and gives them a purpose and a goal for realization. Together, they bring out the meaning, significance, and purpose of religion. Philosophy is the theoretical aspect of religion, which, with scientific and rational analysis, elucidates the why and the wherefore of life and the universe, and contains a coherent system of thought for interpreting the reality. The ritualistic injunctions lead with the practical aspect of religion and lay down the spiritual practices to be followed for reaching the ultimate goal in life. Religion, therefore, is a happy and intelligent
Hang on.
blending.
Can we pass it to the next person for the next paragraph? Who'd like to go next?
Religion, therefore, is a happy and intelligent blending of philosophy and ritualism. If the two aspects are not synchronized properly, there can be no religion. Unfortunately, however, man commits the blunder of projecting only one of those aspects and call it religion and attributes its dependence to failure to religion as such. True religion, in fact, knows no failure.
Okay.
Ritualism there does not mean mere physical performance of ceremonies, but also embrace all models of practical religion applicable to mental and intellectual level of personality. It therefore includes rites, ceremonies, duties, practice, externally devotion or bhakti cultivated by the mind and stubble discrimination, and meditation undertaken by the intellect. When man endeavors to translate the high philosophy values and virtues of life of practical living, he encounters several difficulties which has caused religion to sink into oblivion. These values are opposed to and come in conflict with man's controvert nature. This constitutes one of the main obstacles.
Okay, we'll pause right there. Let me put up these last two notes here. All right, there's a long sentence and then I'm done. Coherent system. All right, so we want to make a distinction. When we say religion, it has two parts, philosophy and ritualism. So a lot of times when you ask, okay, what is Hinduism? They say, oh, it's a lifestyle. No, it's the philosophy, it's spirituality, all these other vocabulary. Honestly, if you were to pay attention to it, you can put them in either one of these categories. Spirituality, this glow, all that's there. Then you say, no, it's duties, dharmas, morality, ethics, it'll come here. So honestly, these two wings both are included in religion. So now, what are these two wings? Let's first start with ritualism. A lot of times I've had family members and friends, growing up, that say rituals, don't even talk to me about that. Temples, don't even invite me. I have grown this anger, this weird rejection of ritualism. My parents used to force me into the temple every single day, make me sit for 3 hours, chant gibberish, then they would make me do it every day. I hate it now. Why? They were practicing the ritualistic parts of it, but they had no understanding of why and what the purpose of it was. So, when we say ritualism without philosophy, we call it as superstition. Don't we see the same people that reject, pujas, japa, and yajna and all that? They say, oh, it's all superstitious. They're recognizing this without this. Now, on the other hand, you get these, I liked Swami Sarveshanji's tag name for them, neo-intellectuals. Neo because they think they're smart, but they're not. Neo-intellectuals because they think, no. I don't bother with all these ritualisms and karma kanda and all that. It's beneath me. I am more in tune with spirituality and philosophy. Give me jnana yoga. That's what I'm interested in. They're called as mad. Not me. Pujya Gurudev said they're called as mad. And in fact, later on he said, it's like putting gold on top of the back of a donkey. They were ruthless in calling us this. Why? Because you cannot live in an ivory tower of thought without knowing how to translate that into your life. You talk about truth, but you lie in your day-to-day life. You talk about self-control, but you can't help yourself in your own practice. Don't be a hypocrite. So philosophy without ritualism is one-sided. Ritualism without philosophy is also lopsided. Pujya Gurudev has the analogy of the bird with two wings. You cannot fly with only one wing. So, what is it actually now? Now that we've discredited the lopsidedness and how religion needs both, what is each contributing now? So, ritualism is practical and a spiritual practice. Say, can you make this, more tangible? How do I implement this in my life? What do I do? All that. This is practical and practice, spiritual practice. And it's not just ceremonies. It's not just doing yajnas or the samskaras. It actually is the application of all levels of personality. I want you to think back to the previous chapter when we talked about the 4 levels of personality. It's accommodating 3 of the 4. Body, mind, and intellect. From the physical aspect, duties and rights are things I actually physically do with my body. Then when it comes to bhakti, my devotion, puja, and japa, that is helping with my emotional state or mind. So that is the practice of bhakti. Then using jnana as viveka. This is that truth. This is not the truth. This is what is real. This is what is not real. This is viveka or discrimination. That will eventually lead to meditation. Meditation is, who am I? Finding that answer is called meditation. This is from an intellectual standpoint. These are all practices. But I cannot do any of these without knowing the why. So now let's come to philosophy. It reinforces rituals. This ritual, it reinforces it because it gives us the purpose and the goal. Why am I doing this and what am I hoping to achieve? Philosophy answers that. And it is theoretical. This is the practical, this is the theoretical. But this is also needed. Just like science, it is a very rational argument. There is logic behind it. In fact, there's an entire shastras called Tarka Shastras. How do I make logical arguments to prove or disprove a point? They're very objective and scientific about it as well. My favorite sentence in all of this is, it is a coherent system of thought for interpreting all aspects of reality. We may or may not have gotten to this sentence, so I'm just pulling it out. Coherent system of thinking for interpreting all aspects of reality. Once I've interpreted, what do I do? If I'm doing something, why the heck am I doing it? This is how they go hand in hand. So, we translate philosophical values and virtues into practical living, and philosophy reinforces this. Now, let me just check my notes. Now I went a little crazy here. Now, how do we take this and make it personal? How do I make this something I can implement on an individual level? This was macrocosmic. We got to bring it to microcosm. Now, when we try to practice religion, we hit an obstacle. What is that obstacle? We are extroverted naturally. Think back to age of scientific inquiry. Don't we rearrange the world in such a way to make me feel happy? That's me looking out, saying, how do I solve that problem of happiness using the world around me? This is a natural state that man is in. But this is an obstacle. Where this constant addiction to going out prevents me from going in. Momentarily being able to say, the world, stop. I'm okay without you for a second. I need to know who I am on the inside. I need to turn inward. This will block me from it. So what is the solution that is given to us? We need to start with a little bit of discipline. So here, I will say we have to start nice and easy, slow, small baby steps. Baby steps. I'm watching my time. Okay, I gotta go quick this. So with these baby steps, we have to have small doses, discipline, plus small doses of knowledge. This is the formula. If I were to dive into discipline right away, saying, no, I have to be completely spiritual all the time, I am a sadhu, I promise, and you go into like vratas and japa and puja, and you give up your family, you give up your job, you just, Arjuna chapter 1 is what I call it. If you try being that, you're going to explode, just like a pressure cooker. There is no release, there's no sublimation, there's no growing. So that, I would say, is suppression. And I use that word specifically because I'm looking at our high school teacher here. It is in our book of self-unfoldment, right? In, I think, the third or fourth chapter. So this is exactly the topic that's being pulled here. If I were to force discipline completely, then I will suppress and I will explode. At the same time, if I were to say, no, I have the capacity to do it, I don't care about the whys or hows, I will unintelligently practice. Sorry, I'm repeating myself. That's still suppression. Then on the other side, we say, you know what? I don't care about all this. I don't want to improve. I don't want to have self-discipline. I've reverted back into extrovertedness. So I'll say, I'm adding my 2 cents here. First is rebellion, then is suppression, and I want to grow out of both of them. Rebellion is, I'm not religious. I don't want religion. I don't want self-discipline. You are impeding my freedom. That's that false way of thinking. But then we genuinely come around to religion saying, okay, I actually do want to practice. And you forcefully try to be spiritual without knowing why, that becomes suppression. So sublimation is this. Having a good support of philosophy, a little bit of that knowledge. Why am I doing this? How am I supposed to do this? Why is it prescribed this way in the Shastras? Okay, now that I understand it, let me go try it out. Okay, I experiment with it, I see a little bit of problems, I grow a little bit more in experience, I come back to philosophy. Give me more. How else can I make this better? I had this such and such problems. How can I fix this? You learn a little bit more. Then you go back and apply it. You develop your self-discipline a little bit more and more. Then you go back to philosophy. Ask a little bit more. What is the true meaning behind it? Are there layers to this? You learn a little bit more. Point being, baby steps. Implement a little dose of self-discipline, back it up with knowledge. Then a little bit more self-discipline, back it up with more knowledge. You have to keep growing in that way. So, there was a really good sentence that I wanted to. Anyway, okay, so I think the point is made, right? Here is my exercise for you, and I'll leave this as our assignment. I want you to work on it in the first half hour of next week's class. If you can get a head start and do it yourself during this week, that's a good start. But if you can't and life, sweeps you by your feet, then I just lost my computer. Okay, I will send them the thoughts afterwards. Yes. Yeah, it shut down. My battery ran out. So whatever's recording, it's only the assignment, so I'll repeat it again, and I can post it later. Okay, so the assignment is, let me erase this part here. I have a couple different topics for you, and for each one of those topics, I have 3 different characters that are going to start practicing that particular topic. For each of those characters, I need you to give me 3 steps. The philosophy and the ritual of it. Okay, what do I mean by this? I'll give you an example. Let's take Karma Yoga is your topic. Karma Yoga. Describe, there's a middle school kid, a adult who is in Grahastha, and us brahmacharyans. Yes, I'm throwing myself in here. Right? These are level 1, level 2, level 3. In terms of maturity of their, supposed maturity, their evolution in their spiritual journey. Now, for that kid, what is their ritual and what is their reason? Baby steps, right? What would you ask a middle schooler to do in order to practice karma yoga? Now, the same thing you would do is now with a grahastha, what is now their ritual? What is their duty? See, when I say ritual, don't just think puja ritual. The practicalness, right? What are they doing to practice this sadhana? That's what I mean by ritual here. It's a little bit different, right? Compared to a kid versus an adult, they're going to have this different duty, but it's still related to karma yoga. What would it look like? Then, how would you back up this particular sadhana with a philosophy? You can go a little bit deeper, right? Finally, maybe I'll do my homework on this part, but I would like you to also try this. As someone who is like us, Hariji, myself, Brahmacharya, who've taken a step out of the normal way of living, really want to advance in our sadhana in a different way, what would the sadhana look like for us, and what is the understanding that I have behind that? The point of these three is just, I was gonna say level 1, level 2, level 3, but it doesn't quite hit us. So I wanted to give you an image. How would you tell a kid this? How would you tell a grahastha person like this? And how would you tell someone who is on the path of sannyasi? That gives clarity on the kind of level we're talking about. Same practice of karma yoga. How would you explain it in 3 different levels? The point of this exercise is to show how baby steps gradually evolve. You have to give a reason for each of them, but see how the reasoning evolves and see how the practice evolves. All of them are practicing karma yoga. So like this, I have a list. I will let you choose. Please make sure that you're not choosing the same one. I will send this information to Chitrakoot and explain that way. So the options you have, karma yoga is on the list, okay? The next options you have is the practice of bhiksha. When it comes to food, bhiksha, then controlling speech, charity, then name, nama samskara. So this one I'm challenging you a little bit. Think about why we name somebody and how the usage of name can be used as a spiritual sadhana. So nama sadhana, maybe I'll change samskara to sadhana here. Nama sadhana. Then atonement. Meaning, when I've done something wrong, I do prayaschitta karma, right? That I try to fix the issue or mistakes I've made. How does that look like on 3 levels? What are some of the possible mistakes that someone can make? And finally, the act of surrender. Surrender to who, surrender to what, and how. Yeah? Yeah, how do we use name to become a sadhana? So for example, our own individual name. How does that become a spiritual practice? Then japa, how does that become a spiritual practice? So like that, how does the use of a name in Hinduism actually a kind of sadhana that can be practiced? Does that help? Does that clarify? But what are all the different variations of namasmaran? Apply it to 3 different levels. Yeah? Okay, so with that, hopefully this will be interesting. Please dig deep. Don't stop at just the first thought that comes to mind. Keep asking for like 5 different examples, then you'll start to dig in a little bit deeper. With that, we'll do closing prayers. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. All right, thank you so much. If anybody would like to buy the book, it's $10. I think, was there another copy I loaned for class? That one, right? Okay, cool. But if anybody would like to buy, let me know. This is $10. Yeah. Let me just grab these. And, okay.